talks in Islamabad, Pakistan. It's 2:40 here in Cairo, 5:40 a.m. in Pakistan, as they are either resting or sleeping, or the technical teams are discussing some 15 hours of negotiations over 3 rounds that went on Saturday. The White House said there were some 15 hours of negotiations. U.S. President Donald Trump has described the negotiations as deep negotiations, but he also said he doesn't care whether they lead to a deal or not. The Iranians have confirmed that the negotiations will continue despite what they called as some differences and what they also called as serious disagreements and excessive American demands. This, as Mohammad Baqir Qalibaf, the Iranian parliamentary speaker, is heading the Iranian delegation. He took with him some photos of the girls that were killed on the very first day of the war, the girls and boys in that school that was hit in the American-Israeli strikes in the very first day of the war on the 28th of February. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is the one leading the American team. With him is Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and this is the first direct meeting between Americans and Israelis since the 1979 Khomeini revolution. There were direct and indirect negotiations. The Strait of Hormuz has seen the highest traffic since the start of the war. Some 19 ships, according to some data, did pass through. The Americans say that they've sent minesweepers and destroyers there. The Iranians deny this and say no one can enter without their permission. With us now over the phone is Dr. Sara Kira. And Dr. Sara is an expert and professor of international relations. Dr. Sara, good morning. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for staying up. What do you think of the progress of the first day of the negotiations? Now we have a second day. I mean, no one even knew if we were going to have an hour of direct negotiations. What do you think?
Well, actually, I think the direct negotiations are going on already, but of course not everything is released to the media, and I'm sure it's a fierce round of negotiations. I don't think this round will be any successful, but I believe the ceasefire would continue, yes, except for outrageous Israel, out of international law, international humanitarian law and everything, of course, but we know that the USA can restrain in that aspect, but hopefully we even come into one even result out of this round of negotiations.
Well, you just gave us the bottom line, because obviously the question is there are 3 probabilities. One is that these negotiations slated for at least the duration of the rest of the 2-week truce would lead to a comprehensive deal. That's a probability 1. Probability 2 is that there will be an extension of the truce to allow for more negotiations. And then probability 3 is that they would break up at any given point and that military operations would resume again. So of the 3 probabilities, Dr. Sara, do you have some percentages for each probability in your opinion, in your view? What are those percentages in your view?
It was expected, of course, that the negotiations start this year, and with huge rejection from the Iranian part on some points, from the U.S. part on other points, Israel on the other hand. But in regards to the 3 probabilities you just mentioned, if we have an extension to the truce, like we continue ceasefire and continue with the negotiations, that's hope. That's actually hope. This would say that we would have a ground to stand on in regards to ending that kind of conflict. But statements from Mr. Trump coming out now about China giving weapons to Iran gives an gives an insight on how the USA, of course, in the persona of Mr. Trump, how they are seeing things.
Yeah, China has just denied this, by the way, just to report the news.
Yes,
China has denied the U.S. allegations.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes, of course. We get in the media outlets, of course, the official, but behind the closed doors, I believe there is a lot happening, and there is like a big conflict, a big diplomatic conflict now. So, first probability we reach a deal in 2 weeks. I guess it's hard. It's not that easy. The two counterparts in the negotiations are very stubborn and very dedicated to their requirements. In my own point of view, the U.S. doesn't have the stronger position, actually. They don't. What else can be done? If, let's jump into the third probability that this round of negotiation fails, what other destruction can we do? Like, there is a lot of rejection to that move inside the U.S. Iran has actually managed, the U.S. wanted to move the Iranian people against their regime. Actually, that thing happened in the U.S., not in Iran. So it's now the pressure is within the U.S. Like the pressure is coming from the people themselves in order not to go on with this war, even if there some of the alliances like Israel and that part and some other countries would like to continue the war in Iran. More destruction inside the Iran. And of course, the Iranian response, I guess now it's better calculated. After 45 days in this war and Iran showing its power, showing its readiness to continue on hitting back on different countries, different directions, and for this long, I guess the U.S. was not prepared for this. The U.S. Maybe had the situation read that by assassinating, of course it was an Israeli operation, by assassinating the first or second line of leaders in Iran, voila, the regime is gone. But Iran was very well prepared, and it keeps on releasing statements, of course, a lot of propaganda, but it keeps on releasing statements that they still have surprises, they still have the readiness. Iran, as a state under this kind of regime, are used to, and the ideology they have, they are used to wars of attrition. So, as hard as the negotiations might be, and of course there would be 1 round, 2 rounds, and here, of course, there's a lot of effort that has to be exerted by the mediators. But the thing is, the U.S. doesn't have any more cards to pressure Iran with, and actually more destruction would be rejected by more, of course, states like Europe, and we have the stance of Europe, very obvious, and we might have other states rejecting this kind of move. So I don't think the world would allow more destruction. The negotiations won't be easy, won't be a success from round 1. I guess we will go back and forth. But hopefully what we kind of hope for now are 2 things. The whole world, the people who are not involved in this war, but they are affected one way or another, and the whole world is affected.
All right. Actually. Speaking of the cards, because you mentioned your personal belief, Dr. Sara, that the U.S. doesn't have any more cards. In fact, the U.S. says that Iran has only 1 card, which is the card of the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. accuses Iran of blackmailing the world and the world's economy. Speaking of, and of course there is the Israel factor that I must ask you about, because this is a very important factor. and the Israeli war crime suspect prime minister is trying, obviously, to tried at the very beginning, and is still trying to sabotage the talks and to derail their progress via his attacks in Lebanon. He even hit Gaza again and violated the ceasefire deal again.
They never stopped the hitting Gaza, actually. Yeah.
So I mean, there are two, just like you said, I mean, if the Americans are in a difficult position, and Mr. Trump specifically is in a difficult position, wouldn't you, because of the risk of losing the elections and the inflation and the gasoline prices and his popularity dropping at home, and the Democrat talk about Israel first policies, and the talk about, you know, that hitting energy installations and energy civilian infrastructure would be a war crime and all of that. The Iranians
and not
also
only
are...
the Democrats, actually, officials from the Trump administration themselves started actually to remove their responsibility of deciding on this war already with
Right, right, and some of them quit, and we know that. But the Iranians are also, at least according to the Americans and according also to many others, are also in a difficult position. I mean, what other card do they have? They have the Strait of Hormuz card, and then there is the Israel factor, which threatens to destroy everything, to destroy any potential success. Okay, we'll get Dr. Sara Kira back with us over the line. We'll try to get from her just one or two more questions before we wrap it up here. Again, this is right. Dr. Sara, are you back with us?
Thank you.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Sara. So I was just asking you. You know, I want you to get the final minutes, not me. So aren't the Iranians as well in difficult position?
The cards of pressure and Israel. The Israeli factor, Israel cannot proceed in this kind of conflict alone. They can with Hezbollah in Lebanon, they can with Gaza, of course, but they cannot with Iran alone.
And that's why, Dr. Sara, there are reports that Israel is asking America for permission to strike Iran if they feel threatened, even if the Americans and the Iranians reach a deal.
Yeah, to strike even after reaching a deal. That has no reason, actually. But Israel is totally out of international law because it has to be defending itself one way or another, according to Article 51 of the UN Charter. We don't see that. We don't fight. Israel always claims that they are under threat, under attacks, and who in this region didn't Israel start attacking?
Right.
The thing is,
right. But since when has international law deterred or stopped Israel? Since when? I mean, it hasn't. It didn't in Gaza. It didn't in the West Bank. It didn't in Lebanon. It didn't in Syria. It hasn't anywhere. And the attack against the flotilla of solidarity, and by the way, the Turkish president is filing a case before the ICC against Netanyahu and 35 others for crimes, war crimes, and their attack against the flotilla. So the UN Security Council resolutions calling for an independent, viable Palestinian state. Since when has international law been applied when it comes to Israel? Resolution 1701, Resolution 2803, 242, 338, 425, 1397, right? And you name it. Since when?
Of course. Well, the Palestinian question, or the Palestinian-Israeli, or what we used to call the Arab-Israeli conflict, is now out of its context. Okay? So no international law has been applied and no veto has been used before. But now with Iran as a strategic partner, that's actually a very important point. As a strategic partner to both Russia and China, here the situation is different. We're talking now about two states. We're not talking about the Israeli massacres and genocide against civilians, against a resistance group. We're talking 2 states now. We're talking a regional power in Far East as Iran, a state, a long-standing state against Israel. So I guess it's different now. And we have witnessed a Russian-Chinese veto for that precise part, because this point tells you that this conflict, the American-Israeli conflict, is not only against Iran. Of course, the Israeli agenda, they see Iran as a threat 100% completely. They would like to eliminate the kind of regime.
Yeah, they're trying to
that
get it
sees,
back to the Stone Age. Yeah.
Exactly. And get rid of the regime that sees Israel as an enemy and the United States. But the United States calculations is totally different.
All right.
They want to take out one of the strategic partners of the new polar coming out.
Right, right. Well, it's very clear, Dr. Sara. There are different goals.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, between Washington and Tel Aviv. We have to leave it here because
actually fighting for its power against China, principally.
Absolutely. We have to leave it here. I'm really sorry, but we're out of time. We have to break because we're going to go live for the news now. Thank you very much, Dr. Sara Kira, the Professor of International Relations, as always, for your time and your expertise, and of course forgot about, and shouldn't have, about UN Security Council Resolution 2334, just enumerating some of the very important Security Council resolutions that have never been applied against Israel. Thank you for watching us. Please stay with Nile TV. In less than a minute, we'll be back with 9 News.